Hello everybody, my name is Panzerboo. Today we're going to be looking at the Apex Legends map and we're going to talk about techniques of jumping and loot and when you can where the best places to go early on in the game, especially if you haven't played a lot. So the map here I have is something I found online that kind of helps me better display the map and where the loot can be found, and I'll link this page down below. So what made me make this video was that when I first started playing Apex Legends was how I was really unsure of where to jump. I mean, I could have jumped right at the beginning, when you uh, first are allowed to jump off the airship, which is like around the edges, but anytime I did that, it ended up dying. And then if I went to the middle, I never had good loot. And then I ended up dying just later in the game, and I wasted a lot of time. Someone talk to you about what other people have found useful and what I have found useful while playing the game. I'm about halfway through max level. So first off, let's talk about these inside areas here. One of my favorite places to go, even though the loot is not too uh, rare, I should say, is right here in the bridges. Uh, the loot here isn't the best, but the layout of the map here works in your advantage because you can easily land up on the high grounds. There's plenty of cover and there's plenty of buildings to get loot from. I'd say on average you can get about half your team fully knitted or all of your team members having a decent weapon or two. My second favorite place to land would have to be over here in the slums. These two spots, by the way, are places that I like to go when I'm playing it kind of safe and I'm unsure of my teammates. Or in the beginning, I see a lot of teams jump straight down for the airbase in the Thunderdome or the swamps or relay or artillery, something like that. I see them jump right out, and I'm just like, okay, it's probably better to play it safe, get out of the way, and then fight back later. These two places here are pretty good. Now back to the Slum Lakes. This place is a little bit different. The layout isn't too favorable for fighting. However, there's a lot of buildings in here and there's a lot of different loot, and it links to the runway and to the pit, which is probably one of my favorite rare places to go, and I'll explain that in a little bit. I do not really like what is the name? I can't even remember now that it's blocked. I don't like landing here usually. We're gonna cross through that, and that's just because this is usually too close to the swamps, and it's right here next to the relay. Now the relay and the artillery get a lot of attention because you are often coming from this direction or this direction or this direction. So going right here, you end up with mediocre loot, and then you've got all these people right next to you who have really good loot, and there's a lot of teams around this area. Now, moving on to like the more rare loot, one of my favorite places to land is right over here in the swamp in this area. I don't like to land in the back area over here just because I can't work my way down and over to the repulsor. I guess I could work my way up to the relay, but I find that the repulsor has better loot than the relay does. Or at least there's more potential in the repulsor because of the more loot spots. Now, let's say, for example, the match starts out. Everybody jumps for artillery or airbase or Thunderdome or water treatment or Skulltown for that matter. A lot of people love to go to Skulltown. I'm not a big fan of it, but that's personal preference, I suppose. In that situation, I try to go to the outskirts of the map, and the reason because of that is because if I go on the outskirts of the map, it's a little bit safer. That's more like swamps and the pit and the runoff and the airbase, or the water treatment or repulsor. I mean, depends on where you're coming from and where people land. If I'm coming this way, across here, I may go to the swamps instead of the airbase, and then work my way back in. Now, what would I say to a new player that jumps into their first match and is looking for some advice on where to land? Personally, I had a hard time with this right off the bat. I'd jump wherever my teammates went. I would always relinquish control of the jump master. So let's talk about a few easy places to land that can give you some good loot and not just my personal preferences. Get my eraser here, turn this up. Oh no. Fine. Guess we're gonna do this. Okay, so if I was, let's say you're coming from on top of artillery, sometimes you'll come from the side of artillery. Sometimes you'll come straight across this way. Sometimes you come this way. Every once in a while I come this way. I mean, you can come from just about every direction. Now, let's start at the north end of the map. Where should you go if you're coming in from the north end of the map? Well, the pit is pretty good for loot. I almost always find a purple shield there. The problem is there's only one purple shield there, which is not enough to help your team. There's a few loot boxes there. I think there's 3, but you may find 4 guns, 6 guns at most, but you're not going to have much ammo. So let's say your teammates are going to run off. You might want to peel off, go to the pit, and then meet up with them at the runoff. That way you can get good loot and meet up with them at runoff. Another option would be to go, where is it? Oh yes, so go to the pit and then go to this little building right here. Now what makes this building special is, for some reason, I'm not sure why, myself and others find a large amount of legendary weapons here. Not legendary weapons, legendary gear. Personally, I found like a legendary hat. I've seen other people. I saw this one video, for example, where he found a whole legendary kit. So backpack, body shield, helmet. It's a pretty impressive place. Not a lot of people know about it, so maybe just land on the pit, run down there, run across to the run over to the bunker. If you're a new player, I would avoid the bunker. So let's say you're coming from the west side. If you're coming from the west side and you're confident in your abilities, jump to airbase, take this side or this side, and I usually land for the airplanes, go inside the airplanes, get some loot. There's usually a weapon or some armor right in there. It's easy to pick up. You don't have to wait for a box to open up. But if you want to play a little bit safer, I would try to land on the bridges. Like I was saying before, the layout is really good and you're right in the middle of the map, so you don't have to worry about too much about the circle. It's almost always in the circle, at least at the very beginning. And then you can work your way down here. You can work your way up here. You can go all the way to the bunker. It's not too far from the bridges, even though it looks like it is on the map. I would try to avoid Skulltown if you're coming from the west. Skulltown is a very, very popular hotspot. A lot of people will go there, and if they're better than you or quicker than you for that matter, especially with the implementation of Octane, people can run in, get some guns, and before you know it, you're dead. I don't spend a lot of time over at Thunderdome, just because the loot is so spread out, it's hard to get to it all. If you want to, you can try to make it to water treatment. The problem with that is it's a little bit further if you're going from the west. Alright, so now let's talk about the east side. Now, if you're coming from the east side, my favorite places to land is the swamp. Most people jump to the repulsor. I can make a better circle. No, I can't. Okay, the repulsor or the relay. You'll see some teams go for the swamp. Most people go repulsor, relay, and then you have a few teams go for the hydro dam. In this situation, again, I try to go to the bridges. It's a nice safe place right in the middle, and then I can work my way from here, or I'll head up to artillery. It's a little bit further, uh, but sometimes it can work. Lastly, coming from the east, if I'm confident in my team and myself at the time, I will jump straight into bunker. It's a little bit difficult because of how close quarters it is, and it's all about who gets to the gun first and then who can start firing first, and we all know how crazy that is. So lastly, let's talk about what it's like to come from the south. Now, when you're coming up from the south side of the map, the Thunderdome and the repulsor are directly to your right, and the water treatment's down below you, usually for the most part. You could be coming over here and it could be the opposite, but let's just say for the sake of this video, we're going to be coming from dead center. Skulltown, it's going to be a hot zone, very much so. Market will be second spot to be a hot zone, and then you'll see Hydro Dam and Repulsor. I would avoid Skulltown for newer players, and you might be able to make something work out of Market, but again, it's so close to Skulltown, and it's a pretty difficult place to navigate and get loot quickly because it's all kind of spread out. Bridges again, Bridges is right there. Airbase is a good bet on this one. I usually go airbase when I'm coming from this direction. If you wanted to, if you like to go work your way up through the swamps this way, this might be a good way to go too, because then you could just kind of work over to wetlands. But if you're coming up from the south, then you're going to have to worry about the teams that stayed in late, jumped off in artillery, jumped off in relay, maybe the Cascades. I don't see a lot of people jump there, but sometimes it happens. Alright everybody, so that's today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, leave a like. I'd like for you to share where you like to land on Apex Legends down in the comments down below. Help other people share what you've learned. I'd like to hear it personally. That's all for now. See you next time.